Okay, when we left off, you were solving problems like this. All right. If we just had to know this, when is it equal to 0? Think about this. Do I want the top of my equation to be 0 or the bottom to be 0? The top. Because if the bottom is 0, what happens? The thing crashes and it doesn't exist anymore, and it can't have an answer of 0. So I want the top part to be 0. That would be of my negative 3. So if x was negative 3, then that would answer that question. Okay, but our questions were more like, let's get back to the way it was, that. How do we figure out where it's less than 0? Well, where it is equal to 0 is an important spot, but so is the spot where it crashes. That's also important, so I need both of those. This is a reminder I need a what? Number line. So everybody, write this one down, make a number line, see if you can do the rest of it. I've given you enough hints here. You should be able to do this. iPhones and other cell phones need to go away. They should not be out on your desk. All right. Do you get that negative 2 is an important spot? So I'm going to put negative 2 on it. And do you get that negative 3 is also an important spot? And I'm going to put negative 3 on it. I should actually rearrange it. Negative 3 here, negative 2 there. And they're both important spots, so I put a circle on the line there. Now, remember what I put above it? There were 2 letters in it. Z for the 0. Which one makes it 0? Negative 3. So that's a Z. And then what do I put for the other kind? A U, because it makes it undefined. And it's using the same system that they do in Calc, so that you won't, like, if you go to Calc next year, you'll be like, oh yeah, we did this last year. I'm trying to do it the same. All right, so then we just have to figure out where does it actually work. Does it work here? Does it work at this spot right here? Does it work here? Does it work at this spot right here? And it doesn't work there. So we'll talk about each little spot. We'll start with this spot right here. That would be a number like something bigger than negative 2, like 0 is my favorite. So I put in a 0 here and here, and does it work? Is my answer less than 0? No, because it's 3 over 2. It's positive over a positive. You remember how we wrote positive, positive, and that net is going to be positive, and therefore it doesn't work because I'm looking for things that are less than 0. Next, I'm going to test the negative 2 itself. The negative 2 itself, if I put it in, do you remember how that was the thing that made the bottom 0? And so it's undefined, and so these never work. U's are always empty spots. All right, the next spot is between negative 2 and negative 3, which would be like negative 2.5. So now, if I put in a negative 2.5 here and here, do you get how I have a positive over a negative? And what's positive over negative? Negative. So this area is negative, and that means it is less than 0, and so that means it works in here. Now I test the 0 spot. That'll only work if there's an or equal to sign right there, because I know I'm going to get 0, but 0 is not less than 0, so it doesn't work. I leave it empty. If it had a sign like this there, then I would fill it in, but it doesn't, so I'm not going to. And the last one is test negative 4. I'd have it negative here, because negative 4 plus 3 makes negative 1. And that also is a negative. A negative divided by a negative makes a positive. So my final answer is between negative 3 and negative 2. And then I need parentheses. The coming back? Listen back, that. Okay. So what do you have for a typical problem? That kind is a fraction, or sometimes they do it like this. X minus 4, and then square root of x plus 3. What? Well, same deal. You got to have a less than 0 or equal to 0, or I'm going to say less than or equal to 0. And then I'm going to make a little number line, and I got to figure out what important points to put on it. It seems like 4 would be important, right? Because that would make the whole thing equal 0. So 4 is important. What about a negative 3 right there? That seems important. So if I put a -3 on here, I got my two important spots to get how to go from there. But do you get that if I put in things like -5, do you see what problem I have? I'd have a negative underneath the rub. That's not okay. So a -5 does not work. So I just already tested that area. How about this spot? This spot was a 0, right? And this spot was a 0. Do those work in this case? Yeah, because it says or equals. And then the last thing is to test in between. 0 is my favorite thing. -4 and 3 makes a negative times a positive, which makes a negative. Okay, so in this little zone right here, I get a negative. This is a negative times the positive. All right, and a negative is what I wanted. I wanted something that's less than 0. So and you just have to test the last little area. 5. I put in a 5. If you think I made a mistake, please tell me. Double check yourself first. Please tell me. Positive times positive would make a positive. Positive, and I don't want positive. Less than 0. So that doesn't work over there. So, final answer, it looks like from -3 to 4 with brackets this time. Did I do that right? I think I did. All right. So, next, I'm going to hand out your worksheet and do some with you. Here you go. Be a little less painful to have your homework when you're back if you got half or 3/4 of it done by the time you get out of here. In fact, some of you will probably finish it. So tomorrow, hopefully, do 1 day of review, and then we have test. What? Okay, hand it forward, please. Sorry about that. All right. Let's do number 1. Okay, here we go. Listen up. Look at number 1. Number 1, I have to factor whenever I can because it makes these a lot easier. So I'm going to rewrite this as x plus 2 over x minus 3, and what's the other part? X plus 3. Good. And now I can see a whole bunch of important spots. Both the zeros and the undefined things are the things I want on my number line. So I can see just right off the bat that -2 would make this whole thing equal 0. C's. And 3, -3, are zeros. No, those are undefined. Sorry. 3. There we go. I was just circling this. Sorry. There's zeros and undefineds. And the undefineds will always be empty circles. You never fill those in. But the zeros, you can decide pretty quickly whether or not they're going to work by looking at the sign. Do you see how it does not say or equal to? So I'm going to leave it as an empty circle. Now I'm just going to test my little regions around it. I'm going to try sticking in a 4. When I stick in a 4 here and here and here, I get a positive and a positive and a positive. Positive over positive, positive. What's that make? Positive. Does that work? Does that answer what they want? They want things that are less than 0, so it does not work. Next, I test 0, and I see, does that give me positive or negative? 2 over negative, positive over negative, positive. Positive over negative, positive. What's that going to come out to? Negative. There's only one negative. Negative. And that's the zone that works, because I wanted things less than 0. So shade in here. And then I have 2 more spots to check. Got to test in here, and I got to test in there. So you test -2.5, see if it works. Negative. farther out, and you're correct. A positive. The last one I'll test is -4. That's going to make everything negative. Yep. Negative over negative, negative. What's that mean? Negative. So that's also negative, which means it is less than 0. It works. There we go. So my final answer then is from negative infinity up to -3, and then -2 to 3. No brackets. All right, I want to do one more kind with an absolute value 8 because they sometimes confuse people. Let's look at number 10. Oh, and before I forget, look at number 8. We just have to change the problem in number 8. So let's change it and do it. Number 8 should read this, x squared, and where it says 4 over x, change it to 8 over x. It's just a small thing, but if we don't do that, it won't factor this. All right, do you know how to start here? Is there a way to get, okay, how about this? What are the things I want for my number line? In the end, I need a number line, right? I want things that will make it equal, what? 0. And I also want to find things that would make it, what? Crash, right? What are the things that would make it crash? You can probably see just by looking. If x was 0, it would make it crash, right? So there's an important spot, and it's an undefined spot. Move it. Concentrating for now. All right. This 0 would crash it, and if I put in a... what could I put in that would make it equal 0? That's a hard one. Well, I want x squared plus 8 over x to equal 0. Now, if I equal 0, then that would be one of my important spots. I just have to find one of those spots. So how can I do this? If I want to get... Could I multiply everything by x? Would that be okay? Yes, I could. I can multiply it by x here, and x here, and x over here. 0 times x is 0. Do you get how by multiplying this by x, and this by x, and this by x, that I fixed my fraction problem? I had a denominator of an x, so that's why I multiplied by x. Okay, so now I can just say x cubed has to equal 8. I can do that. Oops, sorry, negative 8. I can do that. There's only one thing in the world that would do that. What would do it? Negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 will give me negative 8. I know some of you are thinking it's impossible to have a... If it was squared, yeah, if this was squared, I couldn't make it work. But since it's cubed, I can. So negative 2 is my cube. And then from there, I can test my little regions. And so remember, you're always looking for the zeros, and you're always looking for the things that will crash it. I should really put, this is a Z for